Hejsa. It's time to finish this slow stitching project. So now that all the panels are done, it's time to do the next step. So let's just turn it around. So I've actually started over here, and I'll show you on the back what I've been doing. But remember, if you watched the first video, that I do these lines. So there's the little squares for each panel, and then there's some lines in between. And this is a 1/4 inch here. So then the next step is to cut away the wadding or batting in between. Let's look at this one here. So in this section here, the 1/4 inch section, ideally remove it all, but might not be possible. And you can also, if you made the stitching around each panel, you can also remove that now if you want. I'm not sure I can be bothered. So I have removed the wadding in between some of the panels, and I'll also need to remove it around the edges. So I can just do one of them now. So when I'm doing it around the edges, I fold the wadding back so that the fabric is sticking away from the wadding, so that I don't accidentally cut into it. And then I just cut the wadding so like that. It's okay if it's not completely even, but the goal is to remove as much as possible. So around the edges there's an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, or whatever you want to call it. When I'm cutting the wadding away in the space between each panel, there may be some stitching across that 1/4 inch space. I'm just going to cut them open so that I can get to the space in between. And then I just carefully cut along that seam line around each panel, and just checking every so often that I haven't accidentally cut into the fabric. Alright, so that's another space that's free. I think over here I'm just gonna trim it a little bit more. And if I cut into that seam line, it's fine. It's not really needed now. So like I said, if you want, you can remove it. And at this point, I'm not doing the middle section here. That comes after the next step. So now I have, I think, cut everywhere. Yeah. In a few places where I was stitching on the machine and not by hand, I have stitched over my 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all around the panels, but it's fine. I guess I'll know for next time to make sure that I don't do that. So now we're ready for the next step. Don't want all this stuff. But I think I'll show you on paper before I do it on my fabric version. So this is a paper version. And if you saw the preparing video, you may have seen that first you fold the paper so you get something like this. And then you fold it in half as well. Now we're gonna make a cut. For this you can use scissors or you can use a rotary cutter. So this is exactly like the fabric version, it's just a different format. So I'm just going to draw a couple of lines so that I know where I'm cutting. And I'm going to line up my ruler with the center line. Let's see, didn't quite get to the points, but that's actually okay. I'd rather cut it a little too short than too much. Yeah, that's okay. So now we're gonna make this into something like this little book. And the way we do that is grab the two middle sections and pull them together. And then you end up with this, which you can then fold to whichever side you want to the front. So before I started my fabric project, I actually made a miniature version of it, which is actually quite fun. It's a nice little object, even though it's just made very quickly and with bits of scrap fabric. So you can see it's the same sort of thing as this. You have a little book with 4 sort of pages with page on each side, so you have 8 pages in total. So now I'm going to make a similar cut on the fabric version, and I'm honestly a little bit nervous about it because I've never made a large fabric version like this before, so I hope it will all turn out okay. Just want to try and line it up, but I think it has gone a little bit wonky in the stitching process, so I think I might cut this section first and then the other section. Yeah, I think that's best. So I'm cutting on the center line. And again, I'm cutting between that point and this point down here. And I don't want to overcut it on either end. So it's best to, if you're using a rotary cutter, just cut it a little bit short. And then you can adjust it to the exact point you want to go to. Let's check this one here. Do a little snip. Right, so because this has become a little bit wonky during the stitching, I'm interested to see how it's all going to line up. And I haven't decided which of the panels is going to be the front page. Maybe I'll use this one since that was the first one I made. Alright, here we go. Let's just get rid of this fluff. So I grab the two center lines, pull it up, right, there we go. Yep, it all worked out. So now you can see the wadding here. So I want to just go to the back and cut that off. And being very careful not to cut into my fabric seam allowance. So if you're making a project like this, I would recommend making the seam around each panel so that you know not to exceed that line with your stitching, whether that's hand stitching or machine stitching. I think it's actually worse if it's hand stitching, because if you then cut through the stitches as you're removing the wadding, then you'll have some loose stitches potentially, and that's not good. Right, let's do the last bit. Actually, turn it around so I can see what I'm doing. I'm really excited to finish this. It really has been a slow project that lasted all summer, which is exactly what I wanted. Now here I've stitched quite close, actually a little bit over the line, but it will be fine. All right. I keep finding bits where I haven't cut off quite enough of the wadding. Not that it matters too much here, but along the raw edges it does matter, because it will remain a raw edge. I'm not gonna fold anything over or bind it or anything. Alright, let's turn it this way. Right, grab the two middles and pull it up. Here you go. Right, so as you can see, it is a little bit wobbly, and especially here on the edges. See, just put a couple of clips on there. But I don't mind that the pages don't line up. I mean, it would be almost impossible to make them do that, since this is quite bulky. But maybe there are, I don't know, configurations that will make it line up a little bit better. So I think it's just a question of playing with the little book and see what you prefer. I think I do prefer this as my cover. Yeah, I think that will be. So now I need to decide if I want to add some ribbon so that I can sort of wrap around it and close it. I did grab a selection. So let's see if any of this will work. I think this one is too big. So is that one. That one might work. Maybe. Or this one maybe. No, I think the blue one is actually better of those two. And we have these organza ribbons. I kind of prefer this blue gingham ribbon. Alright, so then I need to check how much I want. I think I want the place where it sort of closes to be on the back. Do something like that. You could also make a cover for this if you wanted to, and then stitch it on wherever you want your spine to be. So in my case that would be here. Right, so the next step I'm going to do is take this over to my sewing machine, and then I'm going to stitch all the way around each page, even the ones where it's folded, just so that it looks uniform. And then I'm going to make the, well no, actually I'll have to make the final decision about which is my cover, because that decide where the ribbon will be attached. So yeah, I will go with that as my cover. So that means the ribbon has to go in here. Just grab another. Right, so I'm not set up to record stuff at the sewing machine at the moment, so I'll have to go and do that off camera. But I'm sure you can imagine a bit of stitching, and I'm going to use a zigzag stitch all the way around. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. The book is finished. So I'll stitch all the way around, zigzag stitch. Oh, just noticed there's a little bit there I didn't catch, but never mind. I would say if your sewing machine is anything like mine, you may want to start not at the spine. My sewing machine was not happy about the, so if you've got your sewing machine here, it wouldn't quite let me get close enough to the spine. You can see here's the first one I did. I had to start a little bit away from it, but when I sewed towards the spine I could easily get to almost up to the spine. So yeah, it just didn't like the bulk. Never mind. So yeah, I've stitched all the way around, and I've also made a line of stitching right down the middle or the center of the book. I guess I could make a line of stitching on each of the other two spreads, but I don't think it's necessary. I think maybe if it was a larger version, I might do that just to keep things in place. I can't remember if... Oh yeah, I actually did do the stitching on all the spreads on this little version, but I'm not going to do that for this one. So then I can just wrap my ribbon around and tuck it under. And that is my summer slow stitching project finished. So I hope you've enjoyed these videos, and I hope it's given you ideas to make your own slow stitching project, whether it's a summer one or a winter one, or maybe a garden one or a food project, who knows. And at the end of it you will have this nice object. And the pages will not make sense to anyone but you, which is quite fun, I think. So if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day and happy stitching.